Chapter 1: The Edge of Instinct. The knife came for his throat. Tyson Volt didn't think. Thinking meant hesitation, and hesitation meant death. His body moved 3 steps ahead of conscious thought, muscle memory flowing through him like an electric current, block, pivot, strike. His left hand clamped down on the attacker's wrist, feeling the pulse jump beneath his fingers, while his right delivered a precise hammer fist to the nerve cluster below the bicep. Perfect connection. The knife clattered to the rubber mat with a hollow plastic sound, but Tyson was already moving, twisting the captured arm until joints strained against their biological limits, driving his opponent down with ruthless efficiency. 4 seconds. That's all it took. 4 heartbeats between threat and neutralization. Too long. Should have been 3. Enough. The command echoed through the empty gym. Tyson released his grip and stepped back. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, their harsh glow reflecting off sweat-slicked skin. The pre-dawn training room smelled of disinfectant and effort, the clean bite of antiseptic barely masking the salt and iron undertones of serious work. Through the high windows, New York City was still dark, its skyline barely visible, a jagged silhouette against the navy blue of approaching dawn. Another anonymous gym in another anonymous part of town. 12, 15. Tyson had lost count of the facilities where he trained, each one blending into the next like waypoints on a journey with no clear destination. His sparring partner, Maddox, mid-30s with a military haircut and the hard eyes of someone who'd seen too much, rolled his shoulder experimentally. The joint popped audibly. A thin sheen of sweat glistened across his forehead, catching the light. His breathing came slightly labored, the only sign that Tyson had pushed too hard. "You were supposed to demonstrate the technique, not rip my arm off," Maddox said, but there was no real anger in it, just resignation. His voice carried the slight rasp of a former smoker. "Where'd you learn that variation? That wasn't standard protocol." Sorry, Tyson wasn't. The word was automatic, like so much of what he did around people, a social lubricant to ease friction he couldn't be bothered to care about. He ignored the question about his training. Some things weren't meant to be shared. The instructor, Kellen, crossed the mat. His footfalls were nearly silent despite his size. Kellen was a 200-pound ghost in black tactical pants and a worn t-shirt emblazoned with the gym's stylized Fox logo. The former specialist moved with deliberate calm, but Tyson cataloged the subtle signs of irritation: tightened jaw, slightly flared nostrils, the micro-adjustment of his stance to establish dominance. The point of the drill was control, Volt, not dominance. Kellen swept his gaze across the training floor, where 6 other students watched with varying degrees of interest. They're afraid, Tyson realized, not of Kellen, of me. The way I moved, the lack of hesitation, the brutality. The rubber mat squeaked beneath Tyson's bare feet as he shifted his weight. The attacker wouldn't have given me the luxury of control. "The rest of you, partner up, practice the 3-step disarm." Kellen dismissed the other students with a sharp gesture before turning back to Tyson. "Let's run through the standard sequence. I'll show you. Lead with a lateral deflection, trap the weapon arm, counter-strike to disable, disarm with a twisting motion while maintaining wrist control, step back to create distance." Tyson recited the steps like a shopping list. Follow with immobilization if the attacker persists. Why can't I just let him teach? Kellen's expression tightened. He wasn't used to being preempted. The man had spent 15 years in the field before an extraction gone wrong had removed his left knee and 3 of his team members. Now he trained the next generation with the fervor of someone trying to prevent history from repeating itself. "You know the steps," Kellen said, his voice dropping to a quiet intensity that demanded more attention than a shout. "But knowing isn't executing. Your technique sacrifices sustainability for speed. Against multiple attackers, that approach gets you killed. With respect, sir, hesitation gets you killed faster." There I go again, challenging authority. Let's see it again, slower this time. Like you're teaching someone whose life depends on getting it right. As Tyson reset his position, the gym's air conditioning kicked in with a rattle that scraped against his heightened senses. Cold air raised goosebumps across his forearms, making the thin white scar above his wrist stand out in sharp relief. Chicago? Milwaukee? The cities blend together after so many relocations. "Faster, Tyson." The voice sliced into his mind with crystal clarity. Not Kellen's voice, older, harder, shaped by a southern accent that decades in America had never fully erased. His godfather, Alric, standing over him in the basement of their old house, light filtering through high windows, making dust motes dance like dying stars. Tyson at 14, knife in hand, blood from a split lip tracing a warm path down his chin. The copper tang filled his mouth, his ribs aching from the previous day's training. Sweat-soaked shirt clinging to adolescent muscles still finding their adult definition, or they'll bury you like your father. 6 feet of dirt doesn't care how good your intentions were. The memory flashed and vanished as Maddox approached with the training knife again. The practice blade was a blunted rubber, industrial orange with a weighted core to simulate proper balance, but Tyson's mind replaced it with carbon steel, visualizing the light catching its edge. This time he moderated his response. 3 clean movements, textbook perfect, ending with the knife in his hand and his opponent still standing. The rubber hilt felt wrong in his grip. Too soft, lacking the certainty of proper steel. Better, Kellen said. Tyson kept his face neutral. The praise meant nothing. The technique meant everything. He glanced around at the other students, noting their expressions as they practiced simpler versions of the same techniques. They craved the instructor's approval, smiling when praised, frowning when corrected. Why does that feel so foreign? The youngest student, Zhang, approached cautiously. Can you show me that again? The counter-strike timing is tricky. Tyson nodded, slipping into instruction mode. The counter-strike isn't about strength, he explained. It's about neural disruption. You're looking for the radial nerve pathway here. He demonstrated the strike on his own arm, fingers pressing precisely against the vulnerable point. Teaching was easier than small talk. Direct purpose, clear objective. Zhang nodded, eyes narrowing in concentration. Show me again. Full speed, then broken down. Watch his eyes, whispered Reeves, a lanky student with a Mississippi drawl, to his partner. Man's got that dog in him. Tyson heard but didn't react. Not the first time someone's made that comparison. Practice continued as dawn crawled closer. 20 repetitions, 30. Sweat dripped from Tyson's short, dark hair, running in rivulets down his neck. His gray t-shirt clung to his torso, darkening with exertion. The smell of rubber mats and industrial cleaner faded beneath the metallic scent of effort. The repetition was almost meditative, his mind going quiet during the physical work, the eternal background noise of threat assessment temporarily muted. When the final drill ended, Tyson stood before the wall-length mirror, studying himself with detached observation. 24 years old, 6 feet of lean muscle and calculated movement. His reflection stared back, green eyes giving nothing away, jaw tight, shoulders set in a permanent ready stance. He grabbed his worn duffel bag from the bench and headed for the showers. The bag's canvas was frayed at the corners, its olive drab fabric faded to something indeterminate. 10 years with the same bag, one of the few constants in a life spent moving from place to place. Under the spray, Tyson let hot water pound against muscles coiled perpetually tight. Steam rose around him, bringing with it the sharp scent of standard-issue soap and the faint copper tang of yesterday's workout awakening old muscle soreness. He rolled his neck, feeling each vertebra align with practiced precision. His body was a machine he'd learned to maintain with ruthless efficiency, pushed to the furthest boundaries of human capability through years of relentless conditioning. The work presentation tomorrow would be challenging. He'd spent weeks preparing the logistics optimization plan, making sure every detail was perfect. Yet something felt off about the PowerPoint deck, moments where his analytical instincts had pulled him in directions the standard corporate procedures didn't account for. The gap between theoretical business models and market reality. Plans never survive contact with reality, Alric would say. He dressed methodically. Dark jeans, charcoal button-down, boots with grippy soles that wouldn't squeak on smooth surfaces. The kind of clothing that looked perfectly ordinary but allowed a full range of motion in a fight. Civilian camouflage. Blend in while being ready for anything. In the locker room, he unzipped the concealed compartment in his bag's lining. The knife was there, not the blunted training implement, but 4 inches of matte black tactical steel, its edge honed to molecular thinness. Beside it, a burner phone with only 3 numbers programmed in. He checked both, then sealed the compartment again. Alric's contingencies always have a weapon they don't know about, always have an exit they haven't considered. The knife wasn't standard equipment. Neither was the phone. Both came from Alric, along with instructions that superseded anything else. Better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. Damn habits. 6 minutes later, he was outside. New York City was still rubbing sleep from its eyes. Traffic lights changed for empty intersections. The bitter scent of burned coffee drifted from an all-night diner across the street, mixing with the metallic tang of impending rain. A distant siren wailed. Someone else's emergency. Dark alcove 20 yards ahead, unmarked van idling at the corner. 2 men smoking beneath the broken streetlight. He cataloged threats automatically. Do normal people see the world this way? Probably not. On the eastern horizon, the first sliver of sun broke above the city's skyline. Light caught on the mirrored glass of midtown skyscrapers, turning ordinary windows into rectangles of liquid fire. The city is waking up. 7 million people are starting another day. Tyson tucked his hands into his pockets and headed east toward his office in the Riverside district. Chapter 2. Calculated Existence. The glass and steel tower of Meridian Logistics caught the morning sun, transforming the facade into a wall of fire. Tyson approached the revolving doors, gym bag slung over one shoulder. Another day, another mask to wear. He'd showered at the gym, changed into a crisp navy button-down and charcoal slacks, combat boots replaced with polished Oxfords. Different arena, different armor. He scanned the lobby, noting exits and camera positions out of habit. 3 years here, and some things never change. The security guard nodded as he passed. "Morning, Mr. Volt." "Morning, Ray." Tyson's smile came easily, practiced until it felt real. He'd perfected the art of being memorable enough to avoid suspicion, forgettable enough to avoid scrutiny. He crossed the marble lobby, joining 5 others in the elevator. They stood in comfortable silence, each focused on phones or the workday ahead. When they reached the 34th floor, Tyson stepped out, badge already swiping through the reader. The open-plan office of Meridian's analytics division spread before him. Glass partitions, ergonomic workstations, the soft hum of commerce disguised as white noise, a workspace designed by committee rather than humans. Tyson moved to his station, closest to the exit, back to the wall, full view of the floor. His computer came alive with a touch. 3 screens showing logistics maps, shipping routes, supply chain vulnerabilities, data, patterns, variables. This makes sense in a way people never do. Numbers don't perform for you. "Jesus, how long have you been here?" Lisa appeared at his shoulder, coffee mug in hand. "I thought I was early." Lisa Winters, 34, Associate Director of Documentation. Divorced 2 years ago, but still wears the ring. Competent, detail-oriented, micromanages when stressed. Tyson's screen already displayed solutions to bottlenecks that wouldn't become apparent for days. "Just got in 27 minutes ago. Enough time to scan 2 shipping manifests, identify 3 customs delays, and devise alternatives." "You're like a genius." Brad joined them, leaning against Tyson's desk. Bradley Tanner, operations coordinator, former Marines. The posture and haircut gave it away. Good with crisis management, poor with long-term planning. "The Singapore routing issue? Ops said we'd need at least a week to untangle that mess." Tyson shrugged. "It's just patterns. Anyone could see it." The Singapore solution required visualizing a 7-dimensional routing matrix. But saying that makes you the weird guy instead of just the efficient guy. Brad standing too close again. 15 inches. Inside personal space. Instinct says create distance. Office protocol says tolerate it. Tyson shifted subtly, creating an extra 3 inches without making it obvious. "Team meeting in 5, Lisa reminded them, heading to her desk. Tyson nodded, turning back to his screens. He'd redesigned the Asia-Pacific distribution network overnight. The parameters kept shifting in his mind. Faster routes, contingencies, redundancies for the inevitable human errors. He ran his fingers over the keyboard, making adjustments that would save the company time and money. Same analytical approach Alric drilled into me. Identify vulnerabilities, plan contingencies, anticipate failure. The difference is the stakes. corporate profits instead of imagined dangers. His colleagues respected him. Some even liked him. His Christmas party impressions were legendary, his occasional dry jokes landing with perfect timing, all carefully rehearsed. Tyson Volt, logistics analyst, competent, somewhat reserved, occasionally witty, a persona he'd worn for 3 years. The meeting room was filled with morning chaos. Coffee spills, bagel crumbs, laptops connecting to displays. Tyson took his usual seat, back to the wall, clear line to the door. I'll never stop doing this, even here surrounded by people whose greatest danger is a paper cut. Before we start, Director Kessler said, settling at the head of the table, I believe we have a birthday in our midst. Tyson kept his expression neutral as heads turned. Birthday. A date on documents, nothing more. The employee calendar, Lisa stage whispered, busted. 24, Brad whistled. I can barely remember being that young. Tyson smiled, accepted the awkward conference room rendition of happy birthday with appropriate humility. These moments of personal attention made him uneasy, but he'd learned to navigate them. A self-deprecating comment here, a gracious thank you there. The meeting proceeded. Marketing targets, distribution challenges, quarterly forecasts. Tyson contributed precisely when expected, offering solutions without showboating. Not so much attention as to stand out, not so little as to seem disengaged. His mind operated on 2 tracks, present in the discussion while simultaneously refining the Singapore route optimization, managing parallel processes, where I excel. Another gift from my upbringing, though I doubt he intended it for corporate meetings. As the team dispersed, Kessler handed him a folder. These projections don't make sense. The Miami warehouse numbers are way off. I'll look into it, Tyson said, already seeing the problem. At his desk, he opened the folder. The paper slipped, cascading toward the floor, until Tyson's hand shot out, catching them mid-fall. Too fast. Lisa stared from her desk. Wow, nice save. Tyson forced a laugh. Lucky grab. He carefully placed the folder on his desk, unsettled by his own movement. His reflexes had always been sharp. Alric had seen to that. But lately, they seemed to operate beyond conscious control. Lunchtime approached. Usually Tyson ate alone at his desk. Today, something compelled him to join when Brad called over. Birthday boy, you're actually going to grace us with your presence? Occasional participation maintains normalcy. Tyson gathered his meal. High protein, measured carbs, nothing processed, and joined the group by the windows overlooking Manhattan. Don't act so shocked, he said. I occasionally remember how to be human. The conversation flowed around him. Weekend plans, Netflix recommendations, relationship updates. Tyson contributed when expected, with the right questions at the right moments. It was easy when you knew the formula. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, New York spread beneath them. Traffic patterns, population density, and evacuation routes. He couldn't help but see it that way. Lisa leaned closer. You always look like you're super focused, even during lunch. What's going on in that brain of yours? More than you'd believe. Just thinking about the Miami warehouse discrepancies. On your birthday? She shook her head. You need a life outside spreadsheets, Tyson. Work is my life. They laughed. He'd timed it perfectly. Brad launched into a story about a supply chain disaster. Tyson nodded, contributed insights, and played his part. But somewhere inside, he watched it all from a distance. Earth to Tyson. Brad waved a hand in front of his face. You still with us? Sorry. Birthday existential crisis. Realizing I'm now officially older than most professional athletes. They laughed. The conversation moved on, flowing past him like water around a stone. The afternoon passed in reports, analysis, and carefully measured interactions. Each conversation was calibrated to maintain his image as slightly reserved but competent, each smile containing the right proportion of warmth to friendliness. As the workday wound down, Tyson shut down his workstation. Birthday escape plan? Lisa appeared by his desk, purse slung over her shoulder. Behind her stood Brad, Jordan from finance, and Annika from operations. No plan, Tyson said, reaching for his jacket. Early night. Brad stepped forward, clapping a hand on Tyson's shoulder. Not happening, man. 24 happens once. We're celebrating. I don't really. Non-negotiable, Annika cut in, her smile warm but determined. Rooftop at the Skylark. 1 drink. If you're miserable after 30 minutes, we'll release you back into the wild. Tyson assessed his options. Refusal would require more effort than compliance. Besides, maintaining connections was part of normal life, and normal was what he'd built here. One drink, he conceded. The Skylark's rooftop bar sat 16 stories above West 39th Street, offering panoramic views of the Empire State Building and the glittering Manhattan grid. String lights crisscrossed overhead, casting a warm glow over sleek furniture and the well-dressed after-work crowd. They secured a corner section with plush seating. Tyson positioned himself with his back to the wall. Better sightlines, clear path to the exit. Old habits. First round's on me, Jordan announced, heading to the bar. So, Anika slid into the seat beside Tyson, her perfume subtle, jasmine and vanilla. The mysterious Mr. Volt is finally joining us commoners for after-work socializing. Tyson smiled. Nothing mysterious about me. Please. She leaned closer. You're the office enigma. Half the accounting department thinks you're secretly an undercover CEO testing corporate culture. And the other half thinks you're Batman. Her dark eyes sparkled. Tyson laughed. Genuine, unplanned. If I were Batman, would I be analyzing shipping routes? Perfect cover. She tapped her glass against his when Jordan returned with drinks. Worst vacation story, go, Brad challenged the group, loosening his tie. Lisa launched into a tale of food poisoning in Mexico. Jordan countered with being stranded at a Greek island after a ferry strike. When attention turned to Tyson, he was ready. Yellowstone, 3 years ago, he began, leaning forward. Decided to camp alone in the backcountry. He wove the story skillfully, the unexpected snowstorm, the lost equipment, the face-off with a curious black bear. The details were precise, the delivery perfectly timed. By the end, they were all leaning toward him, completely engaged. The story is mostly true. Yellowstone happened. The trip did go wrong. But I embellished the danger for effect. Sometimes I mix my cover stories, blending truth with fiction until even I have trouble separating them. How'd you scare off the bear? Jordan asked, wide-eyed. Used my camp stove as a makeshift flamethrower, Tyson said with just the right touch of self-deprecation. Not recommended by park rangers. Pure fabrication. There was no bear. But people remember unusual details. Laughter erupted around the table. Tyson caught Anika's appraising glance over her martini glass. The attraction was obvious and not unwelcome. His pulse quickened slightly. It would be so easy. The script practically writes itself. Drinks, dinner, her apartment. Better to keep it light. Better to keep everyone at arm's length, where they couldn't see the cracks in the performance. More colleagues arrived, the happy hour crowd swelling. Tyson found himself at the center of an expanding circle, navigating it with practiced ease. He fielded questions about weekend plans with vague answers that somehow satisfied, deflected inquiries about his dating life with humor that invited more conversation without revealing anything real. A tall brunette from marketing, Serena, joined their group. So you're the legendary Tyson Volt, she said, slipping into the seat across from him. The man who saved the Singapore distribution center with a single email. Greatly exaggerated. Tyson held her gaze with a small smile. Just did the math. The math that nobody else could do. She held up her glass. Happy birthday, by the way. Office grapevine. Efficient grapevine. You have no idea. Her smile turned flirtatious. They also say you hold the company record for rejecting after-work invitation. A birthday miracle. The strangeness of this moment, surrounded by people who see only what he shows them. People who would never imagine the scars hidden under his button-down, the paranoid training that started before he could form memories, the way he still sleeps with a knife under his pillow despite 3 years of absolute safety. 3 cocktails in, the night took on a softer edge. The string lights overhead seemed to pulse with the beat. A pleasant warmth spread through his body, unusual given his typically high tolerance. Serena was telling a story about a disastrous client presentation when Tyson noticed it. A light bulb in the string above their table flickered. Not the normal electrical fluctuation, but something stranger. For a split second, it seemed to flash in sync with his heartbeat. He blinked, focusing back on the conversation. Probably nothing. Reaching for his water glass, Tyson saw it happen. His hand blurred, not moved quickly, but actually blurred, as if momentarily out of phase with reality itself. No one else seemed to notice, the conversation continuing around him. He set the glass down carefully. The room felt suddenly too warm, too close. The background noise of dozens of conversations merged into a disorienting hum. "You okay?" Annika asked, touching his arm lightly. "You look a little pale." "Fine," Tyson said, forcing a smile. "Just remembered an early morning tomorrow." The concern on her face softened. The birthday boy's calling it a night? Unfortunately. He stood, steadier than he felt. "This was great. Thank you, all of you." After protests, good-natured ribbing, and birthday wishes, Tyson made his way toward the exit. The cool night air hit his face, bringing momentary clarity. Whatever had happened upstairs, the flickering light, the blurring hand, it wasn't normal. The Uber ride home was a blur of city lights and growing unease. By the time he reached his apartment, the world felt slightly off, as if everything had shifted a few degrees while no one was looking. Tyson closed his door, engaged the locks, and leaned against the wall, waiting for the strange sensation to pass. Just the drinks, he told himself. Just the birthday and the socializing and the drinks. But deep down, he knew better. Deep within him, beneath the layers of training and conscious identity, something ancient stirred and began to wake. Chapter 3. The Impossible Gap. Sleep came hard and deep. Tyson collapsed into bed at 11:48 p.m., still wearing his jeans. The apartment was dark except for the blue glow of his phone's lock screen casting shadows across the ceiling. His body felt heavy, limbs sinking into the mattress like anchors. The strange sensations from the bar, the blurring hand, the pulsing lights, receded into background noise as exhaustion won. No dreams, no nightmares. Just the black void of complete shutdown. Cold tile bit into his bare feet. Tyson's eyes snapped open. Not the gradual surfacing of normal waking. This was instant and total, like someone had flipped a switch in his brain. He stood motionless, heart hammering, trying to understand what his senses were telling him. Wrong. Everything was wrong. The air tasted recycled, that flat, processed quality of industrial HVAC running 24/7. Chemical cleaner sharp in his nostrils, mixing with the metallic tang of ductwork and filtered air. Not his apartment. His apartment smelled like coffee and worn leather and the faint mustiness of old books. He wasn't in his bedroom. The light was wrong, too. Cold blue-gray illumination washing everything in that specific color temperature of after-hours office spaces. Emergency lighting. His eyes adjusted and the room took shape around him. Glass partitions, ergonomic chairs tucked under desks. 3 computer monitors, dark and reflective on each workstation. Floor-to-ceiling windows showing the Manhattan skyline, buildings lit up like circuit boards against the night sky. His office. No, not just his office. He was standing in the middle of the 34th floor of Meridian Logistics, barefoot in sweatpants and his faded MIT shirt, the one with the small bleach stain on the hem that he only wore to sleep. What the? His voice came out rough, too loud in the silence. The floor plan stretched away in both directions, rows of workstations bathed in that eerie emergency lighting. Shadows too sharp, everything too still. Tyson looked down at himself. Bare feet on cold tile, gray sweatpants, the MIT shirt, no shoes, no jacket, no explanation. His badge was at home. On his dresser, next to his wallet and keys. This floor required keycard access. The elevator required keycard access. The building itself was locked down after midnight. There was no way he could have gotten in here, yet here he was. Breathe. Tyson forced air into his lungs, slow and controlled. The instinct to panic pressed against his chest like a physical weight, but he pushed it back. Panic meant missing details. Missing details meant verify what you can. The thought surfaced in Alric's voice, and Tyson shoved it aside. He didn't need his godfather's paranoid training right now. He needed to figure out what the hell was happening. Phone? His hand went to his pocket and found it. His phone, still there, solid and real. Small mercy. He pulled it out with fingers that wanted to shake. 2:17 a.m. The lock screen showed no notifications. Battery at 64%. Everything was normal except for the fact that he was standing in his office in the middle of the night wearing pajamas. Tyson's reflection stared back at him from a darkened monitor. Pale. Eyes too wide. Hair sticking up at odd angles. The face of someone who just woken up somewhere impossible. I was in bed. I went to sleep. I was home. The memory was solid. Coming home from the bar, the strange Uber ride, the unsettled feeling as he locked his door, changing into sleep clothes, checking his phone one last time. The clock read 11:48 p.m. as his eyes finally closed. And now this. Tyson walked to the windows, his bare feet silent on the floor. The city sprawled below. Manhattan at night, millions of lights arranged in that familiar grid. He could see his neighborhood from here, the general direction of his apartment building. 15 blocks north, 4 blocks west. 15 blocks he hadn't walked. The tattoo on his forearm caught his attention. The geometric patterns his mother had insisted he get when he turned 18. Black lines forming symbols that looked like a hybrid of circuit boards and mathematical proofs. The tattoo shop had been hours outside the city, the kind of place you'd never find if you weren't looking for it. The artist had barely spoken, just traced the design onto his skin with unsettling precision. Keep it clean. Don't let it fade. Your mother knew what she was doing. Alric's words, years ago. Tyson had always thought the tattoo was sentimental, his mother's way of leaving something permanent with him before she died. But now, standing in the impossible quiet of his office, the black lines felt warm beneath his skin. Not painful, just present, alive in a way ink shouldn't be. He looked away. The phone? Check the phone. Concrete data, concrete timeline. That's what mattered now. His last text showed 11:58 p.m., a goodnight message to Brad that he'd sent half asleep. Before that, his Uber receipt. Before that, the group chat from the bar. He opened Google Maps, pulled up his location history. The blue dot of his position tracked backward through time. His apartment from 11:48 p.m. until, he scrolled forward, until 2:16 a.m. No movement. The location pin stayed fixed at his building for over 2 hours. Then suddenly at 2:17 a.m., it jumped. No transition, no path traced between points. Just his apartment, then Meridian Logistics. Impossible. His health app told the same story. Heart rate normal throughout the evening. Slightly elevated at the bar, settling down as he got home. Then at 11:48 p.m., the data just stopped. A flat gap in the timeline, no readings at all. Then at 2:16 a.m., his heart rate spiked to 142 BPM and stayed elevated. The exact moment he'd woken up here. Tyson sat down in the nearest chair before his legs could give out. The leather was cool through his thin shirt. His hands gripped the armrests, anchoring himself to something physical and real. Run through the possibilities. Drugs. Someone could have drugged him at the bar, taken him here as some kind of prank, but his apartment had been locked, chain engaged, security system armed. And the security team here would have footage of someone dragging an unconscious man through the building. That didn't happen without being seen. Dissociation. Some kind of psychological break where he'd walked here himself without remembering. But his feet were clean except for the dust from this floor. No dirt, no wear. And the location data showed him at home until the moment he appeared here. Someone moving him while he was asleep. Drugged, carried here, then. What? They broke into his apartment, somehow bypassed his security system, carried him 15 blocks to a secure building, got him past security and up 34 floors, then left him standing in the middle of the office? Ridiculous. All of it. Nothing made sense, which left only one explanation. Something impossible had happened. The tattoo pulsed warm against his skin. Tyson stood. He needed to leave. Needed to get back to familiar ground, to his apartment where he could think without the weight of this place pressing down on him. The security cameras had probably already logged him here. Weird enough to explain, impossible if he stayed longer. He moved toward the emergency stairwell, avoiding the main elevator bank with its camera-monitored call buttons. The door's crash bar was cold under his palm. It opened silently, revealing the concrete shaft of the stairwell. 24 floors down. Barefoot. The first flight wasn't bad. The second made him aware of how cold the concrete was. By the fifth, his feet ached. By the 10th, each step sent sharp jolts up his legs. But the physical discomfort was almost welcome, proof that his body still worked by normal rules, that not everything had gone sideways. He kept his pace steady, hands sliding along the metal railing, mind working through the implications. If someone had moved him, there would be footage. If he'd walked here himself, There would be a path in the location data. The gap in both meant neither of those things happened, which meant he'd gotten from his bed to his office without traveling the space between. The lobby level. Tyson paused at the door, listening. Silence on the other side. The night security guard would be at the front desk, probably watching screens or reading. He couldn't just walk through looking like this. He pulled out his phone, called an Uber. 3 minutes away. Close enough. Tyson pushed through the door into the lobby and froze. The security desk sat empty. Not just unmanned, but abandoned. The chair pushed back, a half-full coffee cup still steaming next to a paperback novel splayed open. The monitors showed their rotating feeds of empty hallways and dark offices. No sign of where the guard had gone. Don't think about it. Just move. He crossed the marble floor quickly, feet silent on stone. The revolving door's glass reflected his pale face, his disheveled appearance. He looked exactly like what he was, someone who didn't belong here. The October air hit him like a slap. Cold enough to hurt, sharp with that metallic pre-rain smell. The street was empty except for a taxi idling at the light 2 blocks down. Tyson's Uber pulled up 30 seconds later, a gray Camry with a dent in the rear bumper and a driver who barely glanced at him. Rough night? The driver asked as Tyson slid into the back seat. Something like that. The city passed outside the windows. Familiar streets, familiar buildings. Normal. Everything normal except Tyson himself, sitting in the back of an Uber at 2:30 in the morning, wearing pajamas with dirty feet. His phone buzzed. A text from Brad. Birthday hangover treating you right? Tyson stared at the message. Brad didn't know. None of them knew. Whatever had happened, it had happened silently, invisibly. Just Tyson and the impossible gap in his timeline. He didn't respond. His apartment building appeared ahead, the same brick facade, the same warm lobby lights. The Uber pulled up to the curb. Have a better night, man, the driver said as Tyson got out. Yeah, thanks. The lobby doors were locked. Tyson pressed the buzzer, waiting in the cold. Through the glass, he saw James the doorman look up from his desk, confusion crossing his face before he stood and came to unlock the door. Mr. Volt? James's eyes took in Tyson's appearance, the bare feet, the sweatpants, the middle-of-the-night timing. Is everything all right? Fine, just... Tyson forced his voice to stay casual. Couldn't sleep, went for a walk. Without shoes? Yeah, bad idea. My feet agree with you. James's expression showed every ounce of doubt he was too professional to voice, but he stepped back, holding the door open. Well, welcome back. Get some rest. Will do. The elevator ride felt endless. Tyson watched the floor numbers tick upward, each one bringing him closer to whatever waited in his apartment. The doors finally opened on his floor. His door at the end of the hall, exactly as he left it. He reached for his keys and stopped. No keys. Those were inside, on the dresser with his wallet and badge. The door was locked. Of course it was locked. He'd locked it himself, engaged the chain, set the security system. There was no way to get inside without keys. Tyson stood in the hallway, staring at his own door, and felt something close to hysteria bubble up in his chest. He'd teleported out. Fine. Apparently that was possible now. But he couldn't teleport back in, which meant he was locked out of his own apartment at 2:45 in the morning, wearing pajamas, with no way to explain this to building management. Think. The spare key. He kept a spare hidden in the fire extinguisher cabinet down the hall, rubber banded to the bracket, another of Alric's paranoid suggestions that had seemed excessive until exactly now. Tyson retrieved the key with shaking hands. The lock turned smoothly. The door swung open and caught on the chain. The chain was still engaged. From the inside, he stared at the 2-inch gap, at the chain stretched tight across it. The apartment beyond was dark, quiet. No sign of anyone, no explanation for how the chain had engaged itself, unless it had been engaged before he left, unless he left without opening the door. Tyson's hand went to his phone, pulling up the Ring doorbell footage. The app loaded slowly, each second stretching. Then the video appeared, time-stamped, date-stamped, indisputable. Levinson entering, locking the door behind him. The 12 cameras' view of the hallway outside, empty and still. 1 a.m., still empty, still empty. No footage of him leaving. No footage of anyone entering. Just an empty hallway and a locked door, and Tyson 15 blocks away in his office building. He reached through the gap, fumbling with the chain. It slid free. The door swung open fully. The apartment was exactly as he'd left it. His jacket draped over the kitchen chair, his keys and wallet on the dresser, catching the ambient light from the windows. The bed sheets rumpled where his body had lain, the impression of his weight still visible in the mattress. Everything exactly as it should be, except for the man who should have been sleeping there. Tyson locked the door, reset the chain, reactivated the security system. Each action precise, methodical. His hands had stopped shaking. The initial shock was fading, replaced by something harder, colder. He sat on the edge of his bed, phone in hand, pulling up the footage again, watching himself come home, watching the empty hallway, watching the impossible gap where he should have left but didn't, the location data, the health app gap, the ring footage, the locked door with the chain still on. All of it pointed to the same conclusion. He had been in two places at once. No, not at once. He'd been in his apartment, and then without any transition, without crossing the space between, he'd been at his office. Tyson looked at his forearm. The tattoo seemed darker in the low light, the geometric patterns catching shadows in ways they shouldn't. He touched it gently, feeling the warmth beneath his skin. Your mother knew what she was doing. What had she known? What had she done to him? The questions piled up like cars in a collision. But beneath them, one certainty. This would happen again. Whatever had pulled him from his bed to his office, it wasn't a one-time glitch. It was something waking up, and he had no idea how to stop it. He lay back on his bed, still wearing his sweatpants and MIT shirt. His feet ached from the barefoot descent. His mind raced with implications and impossibilities. But exhaustion had its own weight, and eventually it pulled him under again. This time, when sleep came, he dreamed of geometric patterns that moved like living things, of his mother's face, blurred by time and childhood memory, saying something he couldn't hear, of Auric's voice cutting through darkness. The world is stranger than they tell you. Stay ready. And of a sensation like falling and flying simultaneously, the feeling of being everywhere and nowhere at once. When his alarm screamed at 6 a.m., sunlight was streaming through the windows. The city had woken up, 8 million people starting another day. Another Thursday, another rotation of the ordinary world where impossible things didn't happen. Tyson silenced the alarm and stared at the ceiling.
Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, step into the story. Like, share, and subscribe to StoryPulse Studios, where imagination comes to life.